The moment Daniel Brooks looked into Evelyn Moore's eyes across that corporate hallway, he knew his carefully controlled life was about to unravel. She was everything he shouldn't want. 15 years older, battle-scarred from divorce, and so far beyond his league, it hurt to breathe in her presence. But when she smiled at him that first time, something ancient and reckless woke up inside his chest. This is the story of how a single father and a woman who'd sworn off love found something neither of them was looking for. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the hallway of Morrison and Associates flickered with the kind of industrial persistence that Daniel Brooks had learned to tune out years ago. He'd been in 1,000 office buildings just like this one. Glass doors, expensive art that nobody looked at, the faint smell of coffee and laser printer toner hanging in the air like a corporate prayer. His toolkit rested heavy against his hip as he navigated the maze of cubicles, following the harried office manager toward yet another malfunctioning computer that probably just needed to be unplugged and plugged back in. It was 10:47 on a Tuesday morning in late September, and Daniel's mind was already 3 hours ahead, calculating whether he could finish this job, grab lunch, squeeze in one more service call, and still make it to Riverside Elementary by 3:15 to pick up his daughter, Maya. The mental mathematics of single parenthood had become second nature, a constant background calculation that ran whether he wanted it to or not. "It's the corner office," the office manager was saying, her heels clicking a nervous rhythm against the polished floor. "Ms. Moore's presentation is in 45 minutes, and her entire slideshow just vanished. I don't know what happened. She's usually so careful with her files." Daniel nodded, offering the kind of reassuring smile he'd perfected over 6 years of IT work. "I'm sure it's recoverable. Usually is." They rounded the corner into the senior partner's wing, where the offices got bigger and the carpet got thicker, and that's when he saw her. She was standing in the doorway of the corner office, phone pressed to her ear, free hand gesturing as she spoke in a voice that somehow managed to be both calm and commanding. Evelyn Moore was tall, taller than he'd expected, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a way that suggested efficiency rather than vanity. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent, but it was her face that stopped him mid-stride. Not beautiful in the conventional sense, but striking, intelligent, the kind of face that had earned every line around the eyes, every knowing curve of the mouth. She glanced up as they approached, and for just a fraction of a second, their eyes met. Daniel felt something shift in his chest, a small, quiet earthquake that nobody else would notice. "I'll call you back," Evelyn said into the phone, her gaze still locked with Daniel's. "Yes, 10 minutes." She ended the call with a decisive tap and turned her full attention to the office manager. "Susan, please tell me you found someone who can work miracles." "This is Daniel Brooks," Susan said quickly. "He's the best independent tech we use. If anyone can find your presentation, it's him." Evelyn's eyes returned to Daniel, and he felt himself being evaluated with the kind of sharp efficiency that probably made junior attorneys nervous. He straightened slightly, aware suddenly of the worn edges of his work jacket, the scuffed toes of his boots, the whole working-class reality of his existence standing in sharp contrast to the polished perfection of this place. "Mr. Brooks," Evelyn said, and her voice was like expensive whiskey, smooth with an edge of warmth. She extended her hand. "Evelyn Moore, I appreciate you coming on such short notice." Her handshake was firm, professional, and lasted exactly the appropriate length of time. But Daniel felt the warmth of her palm against his for a beat longer than necessary, or maybe he imagined it. "Happy to help," he managed, and was grateful his voice came out steady. "Why don't you show me what happened?" Evelyn led him into her office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, the kind of view that Daniel usually only saw in the backgrounds of video calls with clients who could afford this tier of legal representation. Her desk was organized chaos, neat stacks of folders, a laptop, 3 different coffee cups in various states of empty, and a framed photograph of what looked like a golden retriever. "I was working on the presentation until about 9 last night," Evelyn explained, moving around the desk to gesture at her laptop. "Saved it multiple times, backed it up to the cloud. Did everything I always do. This morning, I opened the file and..." She clicked the trackpad, and the screen showed an error message. "Nothing. Just gone." Daniel set his toolkit down and leaned in to examine the screen, very aware of how close he was standing to her. She smelled like something expensive and subtle. Not perfume exactly, but maybe just the scent of someone who had their life together in ways Daniel could only aspire to. "Do you mind?" he asked, gesturing to the laptop. "Please," Evelyn said, stepping back to give him space. "Work whatever magic you can. I have 17 board members expecting to see quarterly projections in—" She glanced at her watch. 42 minutes. Daniel sat down in her chair, still warm from her presence, and began running diagnostics. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, pulling up recovery programs, checking backup folders, diving into the laptop's temporary files with the kind of focused intensity that made the rest of the world fade away. Behind him, Evelyn paced. He could hear the soft rhythm of her footsteps, the rustle of papers as she picked up a folder, set it down, picked up another. The energy in the room was taut, but not unpleasant. She didn't hover, didn't pepper him with anxious questions the way some clients did. She trusted him to work. "There," Daniel said after 6 minutes that felt like both seconds and hours. "Found it. Your backup sync got interrupted last night, probably a network hiccup, so the cloud version corrupted. But the local cache still has the complete file." He heard Evelyn's footsteps stop. "Can you recover it?" "Already did." Daniel clicked through a few more commands and the presentation appeared on screen, all 63 slides intact. "You'll want to save a fresh backup, but everything's here." The relief in the room was almost tangible. Evelyn moved closer, leaning down to verify that the slides were truly recovered, and Daniel caught another hint of that subtle scent, something like cedar and rain. "You," Evelyn said quietly, "are a genuine miracle worker." Daniel stood, suddenly aware that they were very close together, both looking at the laptop screen. He stepped back, maintaining professional distance. "Just doing my job, but you might want to update your cloud software. This version's about 6 months old." "I'll do that." Evelyn turned to face him fully, and something in her expression had softened. "Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Truly. You may have saved my career." "I doubt that," Daniel said with a slight smile. "Something tells me your career is pretty solid." He gestured around the office, at the awards on the wall, the expensive view. Evelyn's laugh was unexpected, genuine and warm. "Flattery aside, I'm serious. What do I owe you?" Daniel quoted his standard emergency rate, and Evelyn didn't even blink. She pulled out her phone and made the transfer while he was still packing up his toolkit. "Done," she said, "and I added a tip. Please don't argue. You earned it." "I won't argue," Daniel said, though the tip was probably more than his usual hourly rate. "Thank you." He headed toward the door, toolkit in hand, already running the next calculation. 11:03 now, which meant he could probably fit in lunch and still— "Mr. Brooks?" He turned back. Evelyn was standing by her desk, backlit by the wall of windows, and for a moment she looked almost uncertain, an expression that didn't quite fit with the composed attorney he'd watched for the past 15 minutes. "Do you have a card?" she asked, "in case we have future emergencies?" Daniel pulled out one of his simple business cards, just his name, number, and email on plain white stock, and crossed back to hand it to her. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and again Daniel felt that small, inexplicable shift in his chest. "Daniel Brooks," Evelyn read aloud, then looked up at him. "Just Daniel? No company name?" "Independent contractor," he explained. "Just me. Keeps overhead low and schedule flexible. I have a daughter, school pickup, and all that." Something flickered across Evelyn's face. Interest, maybe, or understanding. "How old?" "Maya's 6, first grade. Currently convinced she's going to be a paleontologist who also plays professional soccer." Evelyn's smile was brilliant. "Ambitious. I like it." "She gets it from her mother," Daniel said automatically, then felt the familiar pang that always came with mentioning Sarah. 3 years gone, and it still hurt to say her name. Evelyn must have caught something in his expression, because her own face gentled. "Well, thank you again, Daniel. I hope we meet again under less frantic circumstances." "Me too," Daniel said, and meant it more than was probably appropriate. He left Morrison and Associates with the strange feeling that something had just changed, though he couldn't articulate what. The rest of his day unfolded with normal precision. A quick lunch, one more service call, pick up at Riverside where Maya launched herself into his arms with her usual enthusiasm, homework at the kitchen table, dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. The comfortable routine of their life together. But that night, after Maya was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Daniel found himself thinking about Evelyn Moore, about the intelligence in her eyes, about the way she'd laughed at his comment, genuine and unguarded, about the warmth of her hand in his. He told himself it was ridiculous. She was a senior attorney at one of Seattle's top firms. He was an IT guy who worked out of his aging Honda CR-V. She probably dealt with tech emergencies twice a week and wouldn't remember his name by Friday. Still, when he finally fell asleep, it was with the memory of her smile lingering behind his eyes. The second time Daniel saw Evelyn Moore, it was 9 days later at a bookstore cafe on Capitol Hill. He'd taken Maya there on a Saturday afternoon, their weekend tradition when the weather turned gray and staying home felt too confining. The cafe had a children's section with oversized beanbags where Maya could curl up with picture books while Daniel worked through his inbox at a nearby table, nursing an overpriced latte and pretending he was the kind of father who had work-life balance figured out. He was deep in an email exchange with a client when he heard a familiar voice. "The new Murakami?" "Yes. I'll take a copy. And do you have the latest issue of the Harvard Law Review?" Daniel's head snapped up. There, at the bookstore counter 15 feet away, stood Evelyn Moore. She wore jeans, actual jeans, and a soft gray sweater that made her look somehow more approachable than she had in her corporate armor. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in waves that caught the afternoon light. She hadn't seen him yet. Daniel's heart did something complicated in his chest. He should probably just stay quiet, let her conduct her business, and leave. They'd had one professional interaction. That didn't create an obligation for him to. "Daniel?" Too late. Evelyn had turned from the counter, books in hand, and spotted him. Her face registered surprise, then pleasure. Genuine pleasure, and she was walking toward his table before he could fully process what was happening. "Evelyn," he said, standing automatically. "Hi, this is a surprise." "A good one, I hope?" She glanced at his laptop, the scattered papers. "I'm not interrupting?" "No, not at all. Just answering emails. My daughter's—" He gestured toward the children's section, where Maya was sprawled across a beanbag, completely absorbed in a book about dinosaurs. Evelyn followed his gaze, and her expression softened. "That's Maya? That's Maya, currently deep into her paleontology phase." "She's beautiful," Evelyn said quietly. "She has your eyes." The observation felt unexpectedly intimate. Daniel cleared his throat. "Would you like to sit? I mean, if you have time, no pressure." Evelyn hesitated for just a moment. Daniel saw the calculation cross her face, the weighing of options, then smiled. "I'd like that. Let me just grab a coffee." She returned 3 minutes later with an Americano and settled into the chair across from him with the kind of graceful economy of movement that suggested she was comfortable in her own body. Daniel found himself noticing things he shouldn't notice, the way she wrapped both hands around her coffee cup for warmth, the small silver ring on her right hand, the fact that she wore minimal makeup and somehow looked more striking for it. "So," Evelyn said, "do you make a habit of rescuing damsels in digital distress, or was I just lucky?" Daniel laughed. "Daniel, you're maybe the least damsel-like person I've ever met. But yeah, that's pretty much my job. Computer emergencies, network disasters, the occasional printer that's achieved sentience and turned evil. Sounds heroic. It's mostly just turning things off and on again and pretending it required advanced degrees." Evelyn's smile was knowing. "I suspect you're underselling yourself. The presentation you recovered? I used it to secure a $14 million settlement. So thank you. Again." "14 million?" Daniel's eyebrows rose. "I should have charged more." "Probably," Evelyn agreed, her eyes dancing, "though I notice you didn't ask what kind of case it was." "Figured if you wanted to tell me, you would." Something shifted in Evelyn's expression. Approval, maybe. "Environmental litigation. Corporate polluter versus local communities. We represented the communities. Good guys won? This time." They fell into conversation with the kind of ease that Daniel associated with old friends, not near strangers who'd met once for 15 minutes in a corporate office. Evelyn asked about his work, and he found himself telling her about the strange landscape of independent IT contracting, the feast or famine nature of it, the satisfaction of solving problems, the flexibility that let him be present for Maya in ways his old corporate job never had. "You gave up a steady job?" Evelyn asked. 3 years ago. Maya's mother, my wife, Sarah, she died when Maya was 3. Cancer. Very fast. Daniel delivered the facts in the clipped way he'd learned to, the only way to say them without falling apart. "I was working 60-hour weeks for a tech company downtown, traveling constantly. After Sarah died, I looked at Maya and realized I could either be her father or I could have a career, not both. So I chose her." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "That must have been terrifying, starting over alone." "Still is most days," Daniel admitted, "but she's worth it. And I'm good at what I do, good enough that I stay busy. We make it work." "Single parenthood," Evelyn said quietly. "It's its own kind of heroism." "You sound like you know something about it." Evelyn took a sip of her coffee, and Daniel saw her choosing her words carefully. "No children, but I know about rebuilding a life after it implodes. I got divorced 2 years ago. 23-year marriage ended badly. Spent the first year in complete freefall, the second year putting the pieces back together. Still working on it." The honesty in her voice made Daniel's chest ache. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It needed to end. I just wish I'd been brave enough to end it 15 years earlier." She met his eyes. "But we don't get to rewrite history, do we? Just learn from it and try to do better going forward." "That's a healthy way to look at it." "Therapy helps," Evelyn said with a wry smile. "Lots and lots of therapy, and work, and distance from toxic people, and apparently bookstore cafes on gray Saturdays." "Bookstore cafes are very healing," Daniel agreed solemnly. Evelyn laughed, and the sound made something warm unfurl in Daniel's chest. They talked for another 20 minutes, about books, about Seattle, about the merits of various coffee roasts. It was easy conversation, comfortable, the kind Daniel hadn't had with an adult who wasn't a client or a fellow parent in longer than he could remember. "Daddy!" Maya appeared at his elbow, clutching 3 books. "Can I get these? Please? I'll read them all, I promise." Daniel looked down at his daughter, cheeks flushed with excitement, dark hair and pigtails that he'd attempted that morning with varying success. "Let's see what you've got." Maya proudly displayed her selections. 2 dinosaur encyclopedias and a book about women scientists. "This one has Mary Anning in it. She found fossils when she was my age." "Sounds like essential reading," Daniel said seriously. "Okay, we can get them." Maya beamed, then seemed to notice Evelyn for the first time. "Hi, I'm Maya. I'm 6 3/4. "Hello, Maya," Evelyn said with equal seriousness. "I'm Evelyn. I work with your dad sometimes." "Are you a computer fixer too?" "No, I'm a lawyer. I help people solve problems using words instead of computers." Maya considered this. "That sounds hard. Words are tricky." Evelyn's smile was brilliant. "You're absolutely right. They are." "Maya, why don't you go pick out one more book?" Daniel suggested. "Then we need to head home and start dinner." Maya nodded and scampered back toward the children's section. Daniel turned to find Evelyn watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "She's wonderful," Evelyn said quietly. "She's my whole world," Daniel replied simply. Something passed between them then, an understanding maybe, or a recognition. The moment stretched, and Daniel became aware that he didn't want this encounter to end, that he wanted to see Evelyn more again, outside of chance meetings in bookstores. But before he could figure out how to say that without sounding completely inappropriate, Evelyn was standing gathering her books. "I should let you get to dinner," she said. "It was really good to see you, Daniel." "You too." Daniel stood as well, awkward with the desire to prolong this somehow. If you're ever around this area again." "I live 3 blocks from here," Evelyn said, and there was something almost shy in her smile. "So yes, maybe I'll see you around." She left with a small wave, and Daniel watched her go, aware that Maya had appeared at his side again. "Is that your girlfriend?" Maya asked with 6-year-old bluntness. No, sweetheart, just a friend. Someone I helped with a work problem. Oh. Maya sounded disappointed. She seemed nice and pretty. You don't have very many friends who are pretty ladies. I don't have very many friends who are anybody, Daniel said, ruffling her hair. Come on, let's buy your books and get home. But that night, after Maya was asleep, Daniel found himself wondering if Evelyn had meant what she'd said about living nearby. If "maybe I'll see you around" was just politeness or something more. If the warmth he'd felt during their conversation was mutual or entirely in his imagination. He opened his laptop, intending to finish the emails he'd abandoned at the cafe, and instead found himself typing Evelyn Moore, Attorney, Seattle, into a search engine. Her firm's website came up first: professional headshot, impressive list of cases, awards, publications. She looked intimidating in the photo, powerful and unapproachable, nothing like the woman who'd laughed about therapy in bookstore cafes. Daniel closed the laptop without reading further. Whatever this was, this strange pull he felt toward Evelyn Moore, it was probably nothing, ships passing, a pleasant conversation with a stranger. But 3 days later, when he ran into her again, this time outside her office building during an unexpected downpour, and she offered him a ride, he began to suspect that the universe might be trying to tell him something. He'd been caught in the rain between service calls, standing under an inadequate awning watching his schedule dissolve into puddles, when a sleek black sedan pulled to the curb and the passenger window rolled down. "Need a lift?" Evelyn called from the driver's seat. Daniel's heart did that complicated thing again. "I don't want to take you out of your way." "Get in before you drown," Evelyn said firmly. "Where are you headed?" He climbed into the car, bringing the smell of rain and wet pavement with him. "Queen Anne." "But seriously, if it's out of your—" "I live in Queen Anne," Evelyn said. "Your luck is improving." They drove through downtown Seattle in comfortable near silence, the sound of rain on the windshield filling the spaces between occasional comments about traffic and weather. Daniel was hyper-aware of the intimate space of the car, of Evelyn's hands on the steering wheel, of the fact that this felt somehow more personal than the cafe conversation had been. "Your office building?" Evelyn asked as they climbed the hill into Queen Anne. "Just drop me at the bus stop. I can walk from there." "Daniel," she glanced over at him. "I'm not dropping you at a bus stop in a downpour. Give me an address." So he did, and she drove him all the way to his client's building, pulling into the circular drive with the ease of someone accustomed to expensive cars and valet parking. "Thank you," Daniel said, hand on the door handle. "I really appreciate this." "My pleasure," Evelyn smiled. "Maybe the universe is trying to tell us something. 3 times in 2 weeks? That's beyond coincidence." Daniel's breath caught. Maybe it is. They looked at each other for a long moment, rain streaming down the windows around them, creating a bubble of intimacy in the middle of a gray afternoon. Daniel felt himself leaning slightly forward, drawn by something he didn't fully understand. Then his phone buzzed with a client message, breaking the spell. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "You should," Evelyn agreed, but she didn't look away. Daniel opened the door, letting cold air and rain into the warm car. "Evelyn, if I asked for your number, not for work, would that be completely inappropriate?" She was quiet for just long enough that Daniel's heart sank. Then, "No, it wouldn't be inappropriate at all." They exchanged numbers with the awkward formality of teenagers, and Daniel practically floated through his afternoon appointments. That evening, sitting in his apartment while Maya did homework at the kitchen table, he sent a simple message. "Thank you again for the ride. Made a very wet day significantly better." Evelyn's response came 15 minutes later. "The pleasure was mine. Let's not wait for chance encounters. Coffee sometime?" Daniel typed back, "I'd like that." And that's how it started. Cautiously, carefully, with the awareness that they were both carrying damage from before. Coffee turned into lunch, turned into more coffee, always during business hours, always in public places, both of them maintaining a careful distance that felt simultaneously respectful and frustrating. They learned each other in small increments. Daniel discovered that Evelyn was 47, that she'd grown up in California, that she could quote obscure legal precedents and Japanese novelists with equal facility. Evelyn learned that Daniel had been married at 24, that he'd lost his wife to breast cancer, that he carried his grief quietly, but it was there in the careful way he talked about Maya's mother, keeping Sarah alive through stories. The age gap, 15 years, hung between them unspoken. Daniel tried not to think about it. Evelyn tried not to worry about it. They both failed regularly. It was Evelyn who finally brought it up, 3 weeks into their careful courtship, over lunch at a Thai restaurant in Fremont. "I need to ask you something," she said, setting down her fork with the precision of someone preparing for difficult conversation. "And I need you to be honest." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. "Okay." "Why me?" Evelyn looked at him directly. "You're 32, Daniel. You're kind and smart and—" She paused, something vulnerable crossing her face. "You're attractive. You could be dating women your own age. Women who don't have gray hair and divorce lawyers on speed dial. So why are you having lunch with me instead?" The question hung there, weighted with old wounds Daniel was only beginning to understand. He could have deflected, could have made a joke, lightened the mood, avoided the truth. Instead, he matched her honesty with his own. "Because when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe," Daniel said quietly. "Because you're the first person since Sarah died who makes me want to be more than just Maya's dad. Because you're brilliant and funny, and you don't try to be anything other than exactly who you are. And because your age is literally the least interesting thing about you." Evelyn's eyes were bright. "Daniel, I know you've been hurt," he continued. "I know you have every reason to be cautious, but I'm not him. I'm not whatever your ex-husband was. I see you, Evelyn, not some age or some category. You." A single tear escaped down Evelyn's cheek. She wiped it away impatiently. "I'm too old for you." "You're really not." "I can't have children. That ship sailed 5 years ago." "I have Maya. I'm not looking for more kids. I'm looking for—" He trailed off, not quite ready to name what he was looking for. "For what?" Evelyn pressed. "For someone who makes me want to try again," Daniel said simply. They sat in silence for a long moment, the noise of the restaurant fading into background static. Then Evelyn reached across the table and took his hand, the first time they'd touched since the handshake in her office, and the contact sent electricity up Daniel's arm. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," Daniel admitted, "but maybe that's okay." Evelyn's thumb traced small circles on the back of his hand. "I don't know how to do this. The dating, the trust, the opening up to someone. I'm so out of practice it's almost funny. We can figure it out together. No pressure, no timeline, just us." "Us," Evelyn repeated, like she was testing the word. "That sounds terrifying." "It really does," Daniel agreed with a slight smile. But she didn't let go of his hand, and they sat like that, fingers intertwined across a sticky restaurant table, until their server came to ask about dessert. That night, Daniel told Maya he'd been having lunch with a friend. Maya, with 6-year-old wisdom, simply asked if the friend made him happy. "She does," Daniel admitted. "Then you should keep having lunch with her," Maya said matter-of-factly, and went back to her dinosaur encyclopedia. If only adult relationships were that simple, Daniel thought. But maybe, just maybe, they could be. The weeks that followed moved with a strange duality, achingly slow in their careful progression, yet somehow racing past in a blur of stolen moments and tentative discoveries. Daniel and Evelyn continued their lunches, adding dinner once when Maya had a sleepover at her best friend's house, each meeting peeling back another layer of the careful armor they'd both constructed around their damaged hearts. October settled over Seattle with its customary gray persistence, and Daniel found himself thinking about Evelyn at odd moments, while fixing a network router, while helping Maya with her spelling homework, while lying in bed at night staring at the ceiling and wondering if he was being a fool or finally being brave. The distinction felt increasingly unclear. It was during one of those ordinary weekday afternoons, while Daniel was replacing a hard drive in a dentist's office in Ballard, that his phone buzzed with a message that would shift everything forward. "I have a situation," Evelyn's text read. "Are you free for a call?" Daniel excused himself to the hallway and dialed her number, concern already tightening in his chest. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong exactly." Evelyn's voice carried a note he couldn't quite identify. Nervousness, maybe. I just received an invitation to my colleague's wedding. It's next month, up in the San Juans. Beautiful venue, lovely couple, and she paused. I don't want to go alone. Daniel's heart rate kicked up. Are you asking me to go with you? I'm trying to, Evelyn said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Though I'm apparently terrible at it. Let me try again. Daniel, would you be my date to a wedding on November 15th? It's overnight. There's a hotel block. I know it's a big ask, and you'd need to arrange care for Maya and— Yes, Daniel interrupted. I'd love to go with you. The silence on the other end lasted long enough that Daniel wondered if the call had dropped. Then Evelyn's voice came back, soft and relieved. Really? Really. I'll talk to Sarah's parents about keeping Maya overnight. They've been asking to spend more time with her anyway. Okay. He could hear Evelyn breathing. Okay, good. That's good. Evelyn? Yes? Are you nervous about this? Another pause, then a quiet laugh. Terrified, actually. These are my colleagues, Daniel, partners at the firm, senior attorneys I've worked with for 15 years. They're going to have questions. About me. About us. About the age difference. About— She stopped herself. Daniel leaned against the hallway wall, phone pressed to his ear. About whether a 32-year-old IT guy is good enough for you? That's not what I meant. Isn't it, though? Daniel. Evelyn's voice was firm now. I don't care what they think about your job or your age or anything else. I care what you think. And I care that showing up with you means making this, whatever this is between us, public, real. Not just lunches and dinners and quiet restaurants where we can pretend we're still just friends figuring things out. The vulnerability in her admission made Daniel's chest ache. I want it to be real, Evelyn. I thought that's what we were moving toward. We are. I just needed to make sure you understood what you're signing up for. Corporate attorneys at weddings can be intense. There will be assumptions, comments. My ex-husband will probably be there. He's friends with the groom. I can handle it, Daniel said quietly. The question is whether you can handle being seen with me. What? Daniel, no. I'm serious. You've spent 5 weeks being careful about where we go, what we do, who might see us. And I've respected that because I figured you needed time. But if we're going to this wedding together, I need to know you're not ashamed of me. The words came out harder than he'd intended, carrying an edge of old pain. The working-class kid who'd married up once before, who'd spent 7 years with Sarah's wealthy family, making subtle comments about his prospects, his education, his inability to provide the kind of life she deserved. He'd thought those insecurities were buried with Sarah, but apparently they'd just been waiting. I am not ashamed of you. Evelyn's voice was fierce. Listen to me, Daniel Brooks. I am terrified of screwing this up because I want it too much. And I am worried about the age gap because I don't want you to wake up 5 years from now and realize you wasted your 30s with someone who can't give you what you deserve. And I am nervous about my colleagues because corporate law is a small world and gossip travels fast. But I am not, have never been, and will never be ashamed of you. Is that clear? Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. Crystal clear. Good. He heard her take a breath. I'm sorry. I should have been more direct about what was worrying me instead of making you guess. We're both still learning how to do this, Daniel said. It's okay to be scared. Just talk to me about it instead of hiding it. Deal. A pause. So you're really okay with the wedding? I'm really okay with the wedding. Excited, even. I get to see you in a fancy dress, right? Evelyn's laugh was warm. I suppose you do. Then I'm definitely in. They talked for a few more minutes about logistics, dates, times, what to wear, before Daniel had to get back to his appointment. But when he hung up, he found himself smiling at his phone like a teenager, aware that something had just shifted between them. The wedding was 6 weeks away, but it already felt like a threshold they were choosing to cross together. That evening, after Maya was in bed, Daniel called Sarah's parents. The conversation was easier than he'd expected. They were delighted to keep Maya overnight, asked careful questions about where he was going and with whom, and his mother-in-law, Patricia, said something that stuck with him. Sarah would want you to be happy, Daniel. She'd want you to live, not just exist. Don't forget that. I'm trying not to, he'd said, throat tight. Is she kind to you, this woman? Very kind. Then that's what matters. Everything else is just noise. The conversation left Daniel feeling both grateful and guilty. Grateful for their blessing, guilty for moving on when Sarah never got the chance to. The emotional mathematics of grief and hope was complicated algebra, and he wasn't sure he'd ever fully solve it. The next 5 weeks passed in a strange acceleration. Daniel and Evelyn saw each other twice a week now, sometimes more. They went to a movie, to a museum exhibit on Japanese woodblock prints, to a lecture at the University of Washington that Evelyn had been invited to. They held hands in public for the first time walking through Pike Place Market on a Saturday afternoon, and Daniel watched Evelyn's shoulders relax incrementally as nobody stared, nobody cared, the world kept turning. Maya met Evelyn properly over ice cream one Sunday afternoon, and the two of them bonded over a shared love of obscure facts and terrible puns. Daniel sat back and watched his daughter and this woman he was falling for trade dinosaur trivia and dad jokes, and felt his careful heart crack open a little wider. "She's wonderful with Maya," Daniel told Evelyn later after he dropped Maya at a birthday party. They were walking along the waterfront, hands linked, the November wind sharp off Elliott Bay. "Maya's an easy kid to be wonderful with," Evelyn said. "She's smart and curious and kind. You've done an incredible job raising her." "I've done an adequate job keeping her alive and mostly well-adjusted," Daniel corrected. "The rest is just her being naturally great." Evelyn bumped her shoulder against his. "Take the compliment, Daniel." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, watching ferries cross the bay, tourists take selfies, street performers set up for the evening crowd. The wedding was now just 2 weeks away, and Daniel could feel the anticipation building between them. The awareness that something was going to shift, had to shift, couldn't stay in this careful middle ground forever. "Can I ask you something?" Evelyn said eventually. "Always." "What are you hoping for? From this? From us?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "Honestly? I don't know exactly. I haven't let myself hope for much in 3 years, but being with you makes me remember what it feels like to want more than just the next day. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Evelyn stopped walking, turning to face him. Behind her, the Seattle skyline rose against a darkening sky. "I'm hoping for something too, something I didn't think I'd get another chance at." "What's that?" "Partnership, real partnership, not the performance of it. Someone who sees me, really sees me, and doesn't need me to be anything other than what I am. I had that once, about 20 years ago, before my marriage became a transaction. I want it again." Daniel pulled her closer, and she came willingly, fitting against him in a way that felt both new and ancient. "I see you, Evelyn. Every complicated, brilliant, sometimes terrifying piece of you." She laughed against his chest. "Terrifying? You're formidable. It's extremely attractive." "Formidable." She pulled back to look at him. "I've been called worse." They kissed then, properly kissed, for only the second time. The first had been a week earlier, a soft goodnight kiss outside her building that had left Daniel's head spinning. This one was deeper, slower, full of promise and questions, and the beginning of trust. When they broke apart, Evelyn's eyes were bright. "The wedding," she said quietly. "After the wedding, I think we need to have a real conversation about what this is, what we want it to be." "Agreed," Daniel said, though part of him wanted to have that conversation right now, wanted to name this thing between them and claim it fully. But he understood her need for the threshold, for the public declaration that would make turning back harder. So he waited. He worked his IT calls, picked up Maya from school, helped with homework, made dinners, read bedtime stories, lived his normal life while feeling the steady pull of something extraordinary building in the background. Evelyn texted him throughout the days, funny observations about difficult clients, pictures of interesting clouds, random questions about technology that she definitely didn't need his help with but asked anyway. 3 days before the wedding, she called him late at night, her voice uncertain in a way he'd rarely heard. "I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how you're going to react." Daniel sat up in bed, instantly alert. "Okay." "My ex-husband called today. He wanted to let me know he's bringing someone to the wedding, a woman he's been seeing. She's 28, apparently, a paralegal at another firm." The silence stretched between them. "And?" Daniel prompted gently. And I hate that my first reaction was satisfaction, Evelyn admitted. Because I get to show up with you, and you're wonderful, and he'll see that I've moved on. How petty is that? Pretty petty, Daniel said honestly, but also pretty human. You were married to him for over 2 decades. It's okay to want him to see that you're happy. Am I, though? Happy? The question hung in the air, weighted with more than just the wedding, more than just her ex-husband. Are you asking me or asking yourself? Daniel said carefully. Both. Neither. I don't know. He heard her moving around, the clink of glass, probably pouring wine. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called this late. I'm just in my head about everything. Evelyn, look at me. You can't see me on the phone, Daniel. You know what I mean. Listen to me. I don't care about your ex-husband. I don't care who he's bringing or what he thinks or whether showing up with me proves something to him. I care about you, just you. And if going to this wedding is going to make you miserable or anxious or turn into some weird competition with your past, we can skip it. We can go somewhere else that weekend. We can stay here and order pizza and watch bad movies with Maya. Whatever you need. He heard her breathing on the other end, the small sounds of her collecting herself. No, she said finally. I want to go. I want to be there with you. I'm nervous, Daniel, about people seeing us together, about their questions and their assumptions and their math when they figure out our ages, about whether I'm being selfish dragging you into my complicated professional world, about whether this is all moving too fast or not fast enough or in the wrong direction entirely. That's a lot of worry for one phone call. I'm very efficient at worrying. Daniel smiled despite the tension in her voice. How about this? We go to the wedding. We dance and eat good food and celebrate your friends. We ignore your ex-husband and anyone else who has opinions they didn't earn the right to share. And then, like you said, we have a real conversation about what we want this to be. Deal? You make it sound simple. It is simple. We just keep making it complicated. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Thank you. For what? For being patient with me. For not running away when I get like this. She paused, for seeing me and staying anyway. Evelyn, there's nowhere else I want to be. They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting to easier topics. Maya's upcoming school play, a case Evelyn was working on. Daniel's ongoing battle with a client's ancient server. By the time they hung up, some of the tension had bled out of her voice, and Daniel felt the familiar pull of wanting to be near her, to smooth the worry from her forehead, to hold her until the anxiety quieted. 3 days, he told himself. 3 days, and they'd cross this threshold together. The morning of the wedding arrived cold and bright, the November sky scrubbed clean by overnight rain. Daniel dropped Maya at her grandparents' house, endured Patricia's careful scrutiny of his suit, a new charcoal gray he'd bought specifically for this occasion, and accepted her blessing with a tight throat. Have fun, Maya told him seriously, and tell Evelyn I said hi and that I found a new dinosaur fact to share with her. I'll tell her, Daniel promised, kissing the top of his daughter's head. The drive to Anacortes took 2 hours, and Daniel used the time to talk himself through various scenarios. What he'd say when introduced to Evelyn's colleagues, how he'd handle questions about his work, his age, his intentions, whether he should mention Maya right away or wait to be asked. The mental preparation felt exhausting, and he wasn't even there yet. The ferry to Friday Harbor was crowded with weekend travelers and wedding guests, and Daniel stood at the rail watching the San Juan Islands emerge from the mist like ancient secrets. His phone buzzed with a message from Evelyn. I'm already here. Room 347, reception starts at 4. Are you nervous? He typed back. Absolutely terrified. You? Same, but the good kind of terrified, I think. Daniel smiled at his phone, pocketed it, and tried to breathe through the butterflies colonizing his stomach. The hotel was exactly the kind of place he'd expected. Expensive, understated, the type of venue that whispered old money and impeccable taste. Daniel checked in, changed into his suit, and spent 15 minutes staring at himself in the mirror, trying to see what Evelyn saw when she looked at him. He saw a guy who was passable in formal wear, but would never be mistaken for someone who belonged in places like this. Someone whose shoes were good but not great, whose watch was functional rather than fashionable, whose entire net worth probably wouldn't cover the cost of this wedding's floral arrangements. Stop it, he told himself firmly. Evelyn chose you. That's what matters. He texted her at 3:45. Ready when you are. Her response came immediately. Come up? I could use 5 minutes of sanity before we head down. Room 347 was on the water side, and when Evelyn opened the door, Daniel forgot how to breathe. She wore a deep blue dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated. Her hair swept up in a style that showed off her neck and shoulders. Minimal jewelry, subtle makeup, the kind of effortless beauty that came from knowing exactly who you were and refusing to apologize for it. Wow, Daniel managed. Evelyn's smile was almost shy. You like it? Like doesn't quite cover it. You're stunning. You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Brooks. She stepped back to let him in, and he caught that familiar scent, cedar and rain and something uniquely her. The hotel room was neat, her things organized with the same precision she brought to everything. Daniel noticed an open bottle of wine on the desk, a half-full glass beside it. Liquid courage? He asked gently. Something like that. Evelyn crossed to the window, arms wrapped around herself despite the room's warmth. I saw him downstairs, my ex, with his child bride. Evelyn, I know, she's not actually a child. She's probably lovely. I'm being terrible. She turned to face him. But seeing them together, seeing how he looked at her, it reminded me of how he used to look at me about 1,000,000 years ago. And I realized I don't want that. I don't want some pale echo of what I had before. Daniel crossed the room to her, hands gentle on her shoulders. What do you want? This. She reached up to touch his face, fingers tracing his jawline. Something new, something that doesn't carry all that old baggage. Someone who sees me as I am now, not who I was 20 years ago. I see you, Daniel said quietly. Every day, Evelyn. I see you. She kissed him then, deep and searching, and Daniel pulled her closer, aware of how perfectly she fit against him, how right this felt despite every logical reason it shouldn't. When they broke apart, Evelyn's eyes were bright but clear. Okay, she said, I'm ready now. Ready for what? To let them see us, to stop hiding, to... She paused, then smiled. To introduce you as my date and mean it. Daniel offered his arm, and she took it with visible confidence. They walked down to the reception together, and Daniel felt the weight of crossing a threshold they couldn't uncross. The ceremony venue was on a bluff overlooking the water, chairs arranged in neat rows facing a wooden arbor wrapped in late-season flowers. Guests mingled on the lawn, champagne glasses catching the afternoon light. Daniel felt the moment they were noticed, the subtle shift of attention, heads turning, calculations being made. Evelyn's grip on his arm tightened fractionally, and he covered her hand with his own. We've got this, he murmured. We do, she agreed, and led him toward a cluster of colleagues who were already watching their approach with undisguised interest. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and polite conversation. Evelyn's colleagues were exactly as advertised, smart, curious, professionally courteous, while clearly dying to know more about Daniel. He fielded questions about his work, his background, how he and Evelyn had met. Nobody asked his age directly, but he saw them doing the math, noticed the slight pauses when they realized the gap. IT work, one senior partner said thoughtfully. That's steady employment these days. Smart choice. The condescension was subtle but unmistakable. Daniel smiled blandly. It pays the bills and lets me be present for my daughter. Can't ask for more than that. You have a child? The partner's wife leaned in with sudden interest. How old? 6, first grade. She's with her grandparents this weekend. Single father? Another attorney had joined the conversation. That must be challenging. It has its moments, Daniel said evenly, but she's worth every second. Evelyn's hand found his back, a subtle show of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by their audience. The conversation shifted to safer topics. The wedding venue, the weather, some recent case that had everyone buzzing, and Daniel felt himself relax incrementally. Then a voice cut through the chatter, smooth and familiar in a way that made Evelyn stiffen beside him. Evelyn? You look beautiful. Daniel turned to find a man in his early 50s approaching, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. Behind him, a young woman in a red dress smiled uncertainly. Evelyn's ex-husband. Had to be. "Marcus," Evelyn said coolly. "Thank you. You remember most of these people, I'm sure." Marcus nodded to the group, then turned his full attention to Daniel with the assessing look of someone sizing up competition. "And you are?" "Daniel Brooks." He extended his hand, met Marcus's grip with equal firmness. "Evelyn's date." "Date?" Marcus repeated the word like he was tasting something interesting. "How nice. And what do you do, Daniel?" "IT consulting, independent contractor." "Ah." That single syllable carried volumes. "How practical." The young woman in red shifted uncomfortably. "I'm Stephanie," she offered with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's nice to meet you both." Evelyn thawed slightly. "Nice to meet you too, Stephanie." An awkward silence descended. Daniel felt Evelyn's tension radiating beside him and made a split-second decision. "We should find our seats," he said easily, turning to Evelyn. "I think they're about to start." Evelyn nodded gratefully, and they excused themselves from the group. As they walked toward the ceremony seating, Daniel felt her hand slip into his, fingers threading together with desperate gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not rising to his bait, for being exactly who you are, for—" She squeezed his hand. "For being here." They found seats near the back, and as the ceremony began, Daniel felt Evelyn gradually relax against his side. The wedding was beautiful, heartfelt vows, happy tears, the kind of hopeful beginning that made even cynics believe in love. When the officiant pronounced the couple married and they kissed to enthusiastic applause, Daniel glanced over to find Evelyn watching him instead of the newlyweds. "What?" he asked quietly. "Nothing, just, I'm glad I'm here with you." "Me too." The reception was held in the hotel ballroom, transformed into something out of a fairy tale with string lights and flowers and round tables dressed in cream linens. Daniel and Evelyn were seated with a group of Evelyn's colleagues and their partners, all polite conversation and careful questions that felt like professional cross-examinations. Dinner was excellent, wine flowed freely, and by the time the dancing started, Daniel felt some of the evening's tension bleeding away. He watched Evelyn laugh at something one of her colleagues said, watched her defend a legal position with passionate precision, watched her be brilliant and formidable and completely herself. This was her world. He was just visiting. The thought should have been uncomfortable, but somehow it wasn't. Because when she looked over at him across the table and smiled, that private smile meant just for him, he understood that she wasn't asking him to become part of this world permanently. She was asking if he'd be willing to visit sometimes, to be her anchor when it all got too much, to remind her there was life outside corporate law and professional obligations. He could do that. Would happily do that. The band shifted into a slow song and Evelyn stood, extending her hand to him. "Dance with me?" Daniel let her lead him onto the floor, hyper-aware of the eyes following them. Her ex-husband's calculating stare, her colleagues' curious glances, Stephanie's sympathetic smile. But once Evelyn was in his arms, moving to the music with easy grace, the rest of the room faded into background noise. "You're a good dancer," Evelyn murmured against his shoulder. "Sarah insisted on lessons before our wedding, said she wasn't going to have her groom stepping on her feet during the first dance." Smart woman. "She was." Daniel pulled her slightly closer. "I think she'd like you." Evelyn looked up at him. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She always appreciated people who didn't apologize for being brilliant. They swayed together, and Daniel felt something shift, not dramatically, but quietly, like tectonic plates settling into a new configuration. This was real now, public. Whatever happened after tonight, they'd crossed a line together. "My age doesn't bother you," Evelyn said suddenly. "Not a question, a statement seeking confirmation. Your age is literally the least interesting thing about you," Daniel said, echoing his words from weeks before. "Ask me again in a year, I'll give you the same answer." "A year?" She smiled. "That's future-oriented of you." "I'm an optimistic guy." "Are you?" Her eyes searched his face. Because sometimes I think you're just as scared as I am. You're just better at hiding it. Daniel considered denying it, then decided on honesty. I'm terrified. You're the first person since Sarah who's made me want something beyond just surviving each day. That's terrifying, Evelyn, because wanting means risking, and I'm not sure I remember how to do that without falling apart. So why are you doing it? Because you're worth the risk. Simple. True. Terrifying. Evelyn's breath caught, and she buried her face against his shoulder. They danced like that through the rest of the song, holding each other up, two people choosing bravery over safety. When the music ended, they didn't immediately separate, just stood there on the dance floor, aware of the moment, the choice, the threshold crossed. Come back to my room, Evelyn said quietly. Just to talk. Away from everyone. Please. Okay. They slipped out during the next song, nobody noticing or caring about their departure. The hotel hallway was quiet, their footsteps muffled by thick carpet. Evelyn's hands shook slightly as she unlocked her door, and Daniel covered them with his own. Hey, we don't have to do anything. We can just sit and breathe. I know. She pushed the door open. I need to be somewhere I can be honest without an audience. They settled on the small couch by the window, Seattle's lights visible across the dark water. Evelyn kicked off her heels, curled her legs under her, and Daniel thought he'd never seen her look more beautiful. Makeup slightly smudged, hair escaping its careful style, guard completely down. Tell me what you're thinking, he said gently. I'm thinking that I forgot what this feels like, Evelyn said. Being wanted without conditions. Being seen without having to perform. Being with someone who doesn't need me to be anything other than exactly this. This is pretty great, Daniel said honestly. She laughed, a little watery. I'm a mess, Daniel. I have trust issues and control problems, and I overthink everything to the point of paralysis. I'm not some prize you won. I never thought you were a prize. I think you're a person. A complicated, brilliant, sometimes frustrating person who makes me want to be better than I am. You're already pretty great. I'm adequate, Daniel corrected. You make me want to be exceptional. Evelyn reached for his hand, threading their fingers together. What happens now? After tonight? I was hoping you'd tell me. She took a breath. I want this to be real. Not just dates and careful conversations and pretending we're still figuring things out. She met his eyes. I want you in my life, Daniel. Properly. Messily. However that works with Maya and your schedule and my insane hours, I want to try. Daniel felt his heart expand in his chest. I want that too. Even knowing I'm complicated and damaged and terrible at trust? Even knowing that, especially knowing that. He lifted their joined hands to his lips. We're both damaged, Evelyn. Maybe that's exactly why this works. She kissed him then, deep and searching and full of promise. When they broke apart, she was smiling. Stay, she whispered. Tonight. Just stay with me. So he did, and they talked until the early hours, mapping out what this might look like. Real partnership, messy and imperfect, and theirs. When Daniel finally fell asleep on her couch, Evelyn curled against his chest. He felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Daniel woke to pale November light filtering through unfamiliar curtains and the weight of Evelyn's head resting against his shoulder. For a disorienting moment, he couldn't place where he was, then memory flooded back. The wedding, the dancing, the conversation that had stretched into the small hours. He'd fallen asleep on her couch, still wearing his dress shirt and slacks, and Evelyn had apparently pulled a blanket over them both before succumbing to exhaustion herself. She stirred against him, and he felt the exact moment she woke. The slight stiffening of her body, the catch in her breathing as she oriented herself to the morning. Hi, Daniel said softly. Evelyn lifted her head to look at him, hair disheveled, makeup long since worn away. She looked vulnerable and real, and absolutely beautiful. Hi yourself, what time is it? Daniel checked his watch. Just past 7. We slept on the couch. Apparently we did. She sat up slowly, wincing as her neck protested the awkward angle. I'm too old to sleep on couches. Everything hurts. Welcome to your 40s, Daniel teased gently, then caught himself. Sorry, that was accurate? Evelyn stretched, working out the kinks. Don't apologize for acknowledging reality, Daniel. I am in my 40s. My back does hurt after sleeping weird. These are just facts. She stood and crossed to the window, looking out at the water and the morning ferry cutting white lines across the gray. Daniel watched her from the couch, aware that something had fundamentally shifted between them. The careful distance they'd maintained for weeks was gone, burned away by honesty and proximity, and the simple act of falling asleep together. I should probably get back to my room, Daniel said, though he made no move to stand. Let you have some space. Evelyn turned from the window. What if I don't want space? Then I'll stay. Just like that? Just like that. She crossed back to him, settling beside him on the couch with a sigh that carried both exhaustion and contentment. Last night, when I asked you to stay, I wasn't sure if you would. Part of me expected you to make an excuse, to retreat to the safety of your own room. Did you want me to? No. She leaned her head back against the cushions. I wanted exactly what happened. I wanted to fall asleep talking to you. I wanted to wake up and find you still here. I wanted... She paused, choosing words carefully. I wanted to stop being so afraid of wanting things. Daniel reached for her hand, threading their fingers together in what was becoming a familiar gesture. What else do you want? Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, and Daniel could practically see her internal debate, the war between self-protection and honesty, between the safe answer and the true one. I want mornings like this, she said finally. I want someone to talk to at the end of hard days. I want to meet Maya for ice cream and hear about her dinosaur facts. I want to stop compartmentalizing my life into professional Evelyn and private Evelyn and just be one person with someone who sees all of it. She turned to look at him. I want you, Daniel. However that looks, whatever that means. I just want you. The declaration hung between them, raw and undefended, and Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion he didn't quite know how to name. I want you too, he said quietly. I want to text you stupid things in the middle of the day. I want to introduce you to Maya properly, as someone important in my life. I want to stop pretending we're just casually dating and admit that I think about you constantly. I want... He stopped, gathered courage. I want to see where this goes without being terrified the whole time. That sounds impossible, Evelyn said with a slight smile. The not terrified part. Okay, maybe a little terrified, but choosing to move forward anyway. Choosing, Evelyn repeated. I like that. It implies agency, intention. Exactly. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the morning brighten outside the window. Daniel felt the strangeness of the moment. Sitting in rumpled formal wear in a hotel room with a woman he'd known for barely 2 months, making declarations that felt simultaneously premature and long overdue. I should shower, Evelyn said eventually, and you should probably get back to your room before people start gossiping about the attorney who kept her date overnight. Do you care? About the gossip? She considered. Less than I thought I would, but I'd still prefer to maintain some professional boundaries. These are my colleagues, Daniel. I have to work with them Monday morning. Fair enough? Daniel stood, stretching muscles that protested the couch sleeping. What's the plan for today? There's a brunch thing, right? Brunch at 10? Then most people are heading back to Seattle on the afternoon ferry. We could stay another night if you wanted, make a weekend of it. The suggestion was casual, but Daniel heard the hope underneath it. He thought of Maya, safe with her grandparents, who'd probably spoil her rotten and send her home on a sugar high. He thought of his empty apartment, the silence that usually greeted him when his daughter was away. He thought of another night with Evelyn, unhurried and exploratory. I'd like that, he said. Let me just call Maya's grandparents, make sure they're okay with it. Evelyn's smile was brilliant. Yeah? Yeah. The call to Patricia was brief and positive. Maya was having a wonderful time. They'd be happy to keep her another night, take all the time he needed. When Daniel hung up, he found Evelyn watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He asked. Nothing. Just You're a good father. The way you checked in, made sure it was okay before committing. Maya's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," Daniel corrected. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." Even given the circumstances, Daniel understood what she was asking, whether he resented the single parenthood, the sacrifice, the life he might have had if Sarah had lived. Even given the circumstances, she's everything good about Sarah and me, concentrated into one tiny, fierce person. I wouldn't trade her for anything." "That's beautiful," Evelyn said softly. "It's just true." He crossed to where she stood. "But right now, I'm going to go shower and change, and then I'm going to come back and take you to brunch. And then we're going to figure out what to do with a whole unscheduled afternoon in the San Juans." "That sounds perfect." Daniel kissed her forehead, a gesture that felt both chaste and intimate, and headed back to his own room. As he showered and changed into the casual clothes he'd packed for the return trip, he found himself grinning like an idiot at his reflection. This was real now. They were real. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. Brunch was held in the hotel restaurant, tables full of wedding guests dissecting the previous night's events with the analytical enthusiasm unique to lawyers. Daniel and Evelyn entered together, and the reaction was subtle but noticeable. Knowing glances, slight smiles, the quiet acknowledgement that whatever was happening between them had moved beyond speculation into confirmed fact. They found seats at a table with some of Evelyn's friendlier colleagues, people who asked Daniel genuine questions about his work and actually listened to the answers. The food was excellent, the conversation flowed easily, and Daniel felt himself relaxing into the role of Evelyn's partner rather than her questionable +1. Across the room, he spotted Marcus and Stephanie, the younger woman looking slightly overwhelmed by the legal speak flying around their table. Marcus caught Daniel's eye and raised his coffee cup in a mock toast that felt more like a challenge. Daniel returned the gesture with a bland smile and turned his attention back to Evelyn, who was in the middle of an animated discussion about environmental policy. "You're not bored?" she murmured to him during a lull in the conversation. "Not even a little," Daniel assured her, "though I'm understanding maybe one word in 5 of the legal terminology. Sorry, we get insular. Occupational hazard. Don't apologize. It's interesting watching you in your element. You're formidable." "You've mentioned that before." "Bears repeating." Evelyn's hand found his under the table, fingers linking briefly before she had to let go to gesture during her next point. The casual intimacy of it, the easy touching, the private smiles, the comfortable silence between conversations, felt like something they'd been doing for years rather than hours. After brunch, most of the wedding guests dispersed to catch ferries or check out. Daniel and Evelyn collected their room keys and stood in the lobby, suddenly alone together with an entire afternoon stretching ahead. "So," Evelyn said, "what do you want to do?" "Honestly, I just want to spend time with you. We could walk around town, find lunch later, just be together without an agenda." "That sounds wonderful." They walked Friday Harbor's main street hand in hand, ducking into art galleries and bookstores, sharing a cinnamon roll from a bakery, watching boats navigate the marina. The November day was clear and cold, and Evelyn borrowed Daniel's jacket when the wind picked up, swimming in it in a way that made his chest ache with tenderness. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Evelyn said as they sat on a bench overlooking the water. "Like what?" "Anything. Something real. A secret or a dream or a fear." Daniel thought about deflecting, offering something light and superficial. Then he remembered their middle-of-the-night conversation, the promise of honesty over safety. "I'm afraid I'm going to screw this up," he said quietly, "that I'm going to disappoint you somehow, or not be enough, or make you realize you could do so much better than an IT guy who still has nightmares about losing his wife." Evelyn turned to face him fully. "Daniel, let me finish." He kept his eyes on the water, on the boats, on anything but her face. "I'm afraid that one day you're going to wake up and realize the age gap does matter, that you want someone more established or sophisticated or successful. I'm afraid I'm a rebound or a midlife crisis or whatever the equivalent is when you're 47, and I'm terrified that I'm going to fall completely in love with you, and you're going to decide this was a mistake." The confession left him feeling raw and exposed. He forced himself to look at Evelyn, to face whatever reaction she was having. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Can I tell you something now?" she said. Daniel nodded, not trusting his voice. I'm afraid of exactly the same things, just inverted. I'm afraid you're going to realize I'm too old, too damaged, too set in my ways. I'm afraid you're settling because I'm convenient, or because you're lonely, or because you think you're supposed to move on from Sarah and I just happen to be there. I'm afraid I don't know how to do this anymore. Be vulnerable. Be open. Let someone see the messy parts. And I'm absolutely terrified of falling in love with you because my track record with love is catastrophically bad, and I don't think I could survive another failure. They stared at each other, two terrified people who just laid their fears bare on a park bench in the San Juan Islands. Then Daniel started laughing. "This is ridiculous," he said. "We're both so scared of the same things that we're paralyzing ourselves." Evelyn's lips quirked. "It is kind of absurd. So what do we do about it?" "I don't know. Stop being afraid? That seems impossible." "Probably," Evelyn agreed. "So maybe we just acknowledge we're both terrified and do it anyway? Radical acceptance of terror?" "Something like that." Daniel pulled her closer, and she came willingly, tucking herself against his side despite the awkwardness of the bench. They sat like that for a long time, watching the water and the boats and the late autumn light painting everything gold and gray. "I'm glad I came this weekend," Daniel said eventually. "Me too." Evelyn tilted her head to look up at him. "Even with Marcus being a condescending ass and half my colleagues mentally writing our relationship obituary?" "Even with all that. Because this, right here, right now, this is real. And that's worth whatever else comes with it." "You're quite the romantic, Daniel Brooks." "Don't spread it around. I have a reputation as a pragmatic IT guy to maintain." Evelyn laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet marina, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest, a quiet certainty that whatever happened next, they'd face it together. They found dinner at a small restaurant near the water, the kind of place where locals went and tourists rarely found. The food was simple and excellent, and they talked about everything and nothing: Maya's upcoming school play, a case Evelyn was working on, Daniel's plan to finally upgrade his work vehicle, their shared love of bad science fiction movies. "I haven't done this in so long," Evelyn said over dessert. "Done what?" "Just talked about nothing important. With someone who doesn't need me to be brilliant or professional or performing competence. I forgot how good it feels to just be." "You're always allowed to just be with me," Daniel said. "Professional Evelyn is impressive, but regular Evelyn is the one I'm interested in." "Regular Evelyn is kind of a mess." "Regular Evelyn is perfect." She reached across the table to take his hand. "You can't possibly mean that." "I absolutely mean it. Your mess and my mess can be messy together." "That's either very romantic or very concerning. I can't decide which." "Both," Daniel said with a smile. "Definitely both." They walked back to the hotel through quiet streets, the November night crisp and clear above them. In the elevator, Evelyn leaned against Daniel and he wrapped his arms around her, breathing in that scent he was coming to associate with home. "Your room or mine?" Evelyn murmured. Daniel's heart rate kicked up. "What are you asking?" She pulled back to look at him. "I'm asking if you want to stay with me again tonight. Actually stay, not just fall asleep on the couch. I'm asking if you're ready for this to be more than just talking and careful kissing and maintaining appropriate boundaries." The elevator reached their floor, doors sliding open on an empty hallway. Daniel didn't move, holding Evelyn's gaze. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "I'm sure that I want you. I'm sure that I trust you. I'm sure that I'm tired of being careful when all I want is to be close to you." She touched his face. "But only if you want this too. Only if you're ready." Daniel thought of Sarah, of the guilt he still carried like a stone in his chest. He thought of Maya, of what it would mean to truly move forward with someone new. He thought of all the logical reasons this was too fast, too soon, too complicated. Then he looked at Evelyn, at the vulnerability in her eyes, the hope and fear tangled together, and none of those reasons mattered anymore. "I want this," he said. "I want you." Her smile was tremulous and beautiful. "Then let's stop being afraid." They went to her room, and Daniel was struck by the significance of the moment, the deliberate choice they were both making, the threshold they were crossing together. Evelyn unlocked the door with shaking hands, and Daniel covered them with his own, steadying them both. Inside, she turned to face him, and Daniel saw all the uncertainty written across her face. He understood it completely. This was a vulnerability at its most raw, two damaged people choosing to trust anyway. "We can just talk if you want," he offered. "There's no pressure." "I know." Evelyn stepped closer, hands coming up to rest on his chest. "But I don't want to talk right now. I want to stop thinking and analyzing and worrying about everything that could go wrong. I just want to feel something good." Daniel cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Then let's feel something good together." He kissed her softly at first, gentle and exploring, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. But Evelyn pressed closer, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair, and the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate and full of weeks of restrained wanting. They made their way to the bed in stops and starts, pausing to touch and taste and learn the geography of each other. Daniel traced the elegant line of Evelyn's neck, the curve of her shoulder, and she gasped against his mouth in a way that sent heat straight through him. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "I'm 47, she said, and he heard the old insecurity underneath. Daniel pulled back to look at her. "You're beautiful," he repeated firmly. "Every year, every line, every piece of you. Beautiful." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away impatiently. "I don't know why I'm crying. Because this is terrifying and wonderful, and neither of us knows what we're doing." "That's fair." She laughed shakily, then pulled him down for another kiss. They took their time learning each other, mapping scars and stories written on skin. Daniel found the surgical scar on Evelyn's abdomen and kissed it gently, without asking, understanding instinctively that some stories didn't need words. Evelyn traced the ring mark on Daniel's finger that still hadn't fully faded after 3 years, and understood what it meant to carry ghosts into new beginnings. When they finally came together, it was with a kind of desperate tenderness. Two people who'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, and were relearning together. Evelyn gasped his name like a prayer, and Daniel buried his face in her neck, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion and the simple miracle of connection. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the hotel sheets, breathing hard, hearts gradually slowing from their racing pace. Daniel felt Evelyn trembling against him and pulled her closer. "You okay?" he asked softly. "More than okay." Her voice was thick with emotion. I forgot it could be like this." "Like what?" "Gentle, present, real." She turned to look at him, eyes bright in the dim light. "My marriage was performative toward the end, going through motions. This was us," Daniel finished. "Just us." "Yeah." She kissed his shoulder, his neck, his jaw. "Just us." They dozed in fits and starts, waking to touch and murmur and drift back into sleep. Sometime past midnight, Daniel woke to find Evelyn sitting up, silhouetted against the window, wrapped in the hotel robe. "Can't sleep?" he asked, voice rough. She glanced back at him. "Just thinking." About how I didn't think I'd get this again. This feeling of," she paused, searching for words, "of being seen and wanted and safe with someone. I'd accepted that maybe that chapter was closed for me." Daniel sat up, sheets pooling around his waist. "And now? Now I'm terrified I'm going to wake up and find out this was all some elaborate dream. Or worse, that it's real, and I'm going to somehow destroy it through sheer force of my own issues." "Evelyn, come here." She crossed back to the bed, and Daniel pulled her down beside him, gathering her close. "Listen to me. You're not going to destroy this. We might hit rough patches. We might have to navigate complicated things, but you're not going to destroy anything. You're too intentional, too careful about things that matter, and I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. I can promise that I'm choosing to be here right now, that I'm choosing you. That's all any of us can ever promise, the choice we're making in this moment." Evelyn was quiet for a long time, and Daniel simply held her, breathing with her, present in the silence. "I'm falling in love with you," she whispered finally. "And that terrifies me." Daniel's heart stuttered in his chest. He'd felt it too, that dangerous edge they'd been skirting, the precipice of something deeper than affection or attraction or simple wanting. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted, "and it terrifies me just as much. What do we do about it?" "I don't know. Maybe we just let it happen, stop fighting it?" "That seems reckless." "Probably," Daniel agreed. "But I'm tired of being careful, aren't you?" Evelyn turned in his arms to face him, and in the dim light from the window he could see tears on her cheeks. "I'm so tired of being careful. I'm tired of protecting myself from potential hurt and missing out on potential joy. I'm tired of half living." "Then let's stop," Daniel said simply. Let's be reckless together." She kissed him then, deep and searching, tasting like salt and promise and new beginnings. They made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch and whisper and shared breath. When they finally fell asleep, it was completely tangled together. Boundaries dissolved, guards abandoned, two people choosing vulnerability over safety. Daniel woke to gray morning light and Evelyn's alarm chirping insistently from the nightstand. She groaned and reached over him to silence it, then collapsed back against his chest. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning. What time is it?" "Too early. We need to check out by 11. Daniel pressed a kiss to her hair. Back to reality. Unfortunately, she tilted her head to look at him. "Are you okay? About last night?" "Am I okay that I got to spend the night with an incredible woman who makes me laugh and think and feel alive again? Yeah, I'm pretty okay with that." Evelyn's smile was radiant. "Good, because I'm extremely okay with it too." They took their time getting ready, sharing the bathroom and stealing kisses between brushing teeth and finding scattered clothes. The intimacy of it, the mundane morning routine done together, felt significant in ways Daniel couldn't articulate. This was what partnership looked like, he thought. This easy domesticity, this comfortable sharing of space. The ferry ride back to Anacortes was quiet, both of them lost in thought. Daniel held Evelyn's hand on the deck, watching the islands recede behind them, feeling the weight of what they'd shared settling into something solid and real. "So," Evelyn said as they approached the dock, "what happens now? What do you want to happen?" She was quiet for a moment, then, "I want to do this properly. I want to tell Maya, introduce you as my boyfriend, if that's what you want to be called. I want you to see my house, meet my dog. Let me be part of your actual life instead of these carved-out moments. I want—" She paused. "I want to try being in a real relationship with you, Daniel. All the messy, complicated, wonderful parts of it." Daniel felt his heart expand in his chest. "Boyfriend, I like that. And yes, I want all of that too. Even the messy parts, especially the messy parts." They drove back to Seattle in comfortable silence, hands linked over the center console, both processing the significance of the weekend. Everything had changed. They'd crossed from careful exploration into committed intention, from maybe into yes. Daniel dropped Evelyn at her house, a beautiful craftsman in Queen Anne with a view of the Sound, and promised to call later. Then he drove to pick up Maya from her grandparents, feeling lighter than he had in years. Maya launched herself into his arms the moment he walked through the door, chattering about everything she'd done with her grandparents. Patricia watched them with knowing eyes. "Good weekend?" she asked quietly. "Very good," Daniel admitted. "I'm glad, Daniel. You deserve to be happy." He hugged his mother-in-law, grateful for her blessing, then gathered Maya and headed home. In the car, Maya asked the question he'd been both expecting and dreading. "Did you have fun at the wedding with Evelyn?" "I did, sweetheart. We had a really nice time." "Is she your girlfriend now?" Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror at his daughter's serious face. "Would that be okay with you if she was?" Maya considered this with the gravity of a 6-year-old weighing important matters. "I think so. She's nice, and she knows about dinosaurs, and you smile more when you talk about her." "I do?" "Uh-huh. Like how you smile when you look at pictures of mommy, happy, but also kind of sad." The observation was so astute it made Daniel's throat tight. "Yeah, baby. Evelyn does make me happy." "Then she should be your girlfriend. That's what girlfriends do. They make people happy." If only adult relationships were that simple, Daniel thought. But maybe, just maybe, they could be. That night, After Maya was asleep, Daniel called Evelyn. They talked for over an hour about nothing and everything. And when they finally hung up, Daniel lay in bed feeling something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Pure, uncomplicated, terrifying hope for a future he was finally ready to reach for. The invitation came 3 days later, delivered with the kind of careful casualness that told Daniel it meant more than Evelyn was letting on. "So I was thinking," she said over the phone during his lunch break, "maybe you could come over this weekend, see the house, meet Winston properly." Winston? My dog. The golden retriever from the photo in my office. He's old and ridiculous and sheds everywhere, and I should probably warn you that he has no concept of personal space. Daniel smiled, wedged between service calls in his parked CRV with a rapidly cooling sandwich. "I like dogs, and I'd love to see your place. Maya too, if you want. If you think she's ready for that. No pressure." The nervousness in Evelyn's voice made Daniel's chest warm. "I'll ask her, but I think she'd like that. She's been asking about you." "She has?" Evelyn sounded pleased and terrified in equal measure. "Constantly. Apparently you made quite an impression with your dinosaur knowledge." "I'll have to brush up. Can't let a 6-year-old down." They settled on Saturday afternoon, and when Daniel hung up, he found himself grinning at the steering wheel like an idiot. This was it, the next threshold. Bringing Maya into Evelyn's space, letting their worlds truly overlap instead of keeping them carefully separated. That evening, while Maya worked on a drawing at the kitchen table, Daniel broached the subject with the same careful attention he brought to explaining why she couldn't have ice cream for breakfast. "Hey Maya, you know my friend Evelyn?" Maya looked up, marker poised midair. "Your girlfriend Evelyn?" "Yes, my girlfriend Evelyn. She invited us to visit her house this weekend. She has a dog named Winston she wants you to meet." Maya's eyes went wide. "A real dog? What kind?" "A golden retriever. She says he's very friendly, but he sheds a lot." "I don't care about shedding. Can we go? Please, please, please?" Daniel laughed at her enthusiasm. "We can go, but I need you to understand something first, okay?" Maya set down her marker, giving him her full attention in that unnerving way children had of being completely present. "Evelyn is important to me," Daniel said carefully. "And I want you two to get to know each other better. But that means being polite and kind, even if you're nervous or shy. Think you can do that?" "I'm not shy," Maya said with 6-year-old confidence. "And I already like Evelyn. She's smart and she listens when I talk, and she doesn't treat me like I'm a baby." "That's true, she doesn't. Plus, she makes you happy." Maya tilted her head, studying him with Sarah's eyes. "You've been happier since you met her. You sing in the shower again." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "I do?" "Uh-huh. You used to sing all the time when Mommy was here. Then you stopped. But now you do it again sometimes." She picked up her marker and went back to her drawing like she hadn't just cracked his heart wide open. Saturday arrived gray and cold. Typical Seattle November weather that promised rain without quite delivering. Daniel dressed Maya in her favorite purple sweater and warned her twice about being respectful of Evelyn's things, then drove toward Queen Anne with butterflies colonizing his stomach. Evelyn's house was even more beautiful in daylight, a classic craftsman with a deep front porch and garden beds that looked professionally maintained. Daniel parked on the street, and before he could even unbuckle, Maya was bouncing in her seat. "Is that it? Can we go in? Is Winston inside?" "Patience," Daniel said, but he was smiling. "Let's give Evelyn a chance to actually answer the door first." They walked up the stone path together, Maya's small hand in his, and Daniel felt the significance of the moment settling over him like a physical weight. This was his daughter meeting his girlfriend at her home. This was worlds colliding. This was real life, messy and complicated and terrifying. He rang the doorbell and almost immediately heard barking, deep and enthusiastic, and getting closer. The door swung open to reveal Evelyn in jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, and behind her a massive golden retriever trying to shove past her legs to greet the visitors. "Winston, sit!" Evelyn commanded, and the dog immediately obeyed, though his entire back half was still wagging with barely contained excitement. "Sorry, he's very enthusiastic about new people." He's so big, Maya breathed, delighted rather than scared. He is pretty big, Evelyn agreed, then crouched down to Maya's level. Hi, Maya. I'm so glad you came. Would you like to pet Winston? He's very gentle, I promise. Maya looked up at Daniel for permission, and he nodded. She approached the dog cautiously at first, then squealed with joy when Winston's tongue found her face. He kissed me! Dad, he kissed me! Daniel met Evelyn's eyes over his daughter's head, and something passed between them, a shared pleasure at Maya's happiness, a quiet acknowledgement of the trust being built. Come in, Evelyn said, stepping back to let them enter. Fair warning, the house is a bit of a disaster. I tried to clean, but Winston helped, which means everything I put away, he immediately redistributed. The house was not remotely a disaster. It was beautiful. Hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves overflowing with legal texts and novels, art that looked original and expensive on the walls. But it was also clearly lived in, comfortable. A blanket thrown over the couch, a coffee mug on the side table, dog toys scattered across the floor. This is amazing, Daniel said honestly. How long have you lived here? 8 years, bought it right after the divorce with the settlement money. It was supposed to be temporary, but she gestured around. I fell in love with it. The light, the view, the garden. It felt like mine in a way nothing ever had before. Maya had already made herself at home on the floor, letting Winston climb half into her lap despite being roughly her size. Can we get a dog, Dad? Please? I'll take care of it and walk it and everything. We've talked about this, sweetheart. Our apartment doesn't allow dogs. That's so unfair. Maya buried her face in Winston's fur dramatically. Evelyn caught Daniel's eye and mouthed, sorry, but he just shook his head with a smile. This was Maya being Maya, falling in love quickly and completely, whether with dinosaurs or dogs or apparently his girlfriend's house. Can I give you the tour? Evelyn asked. Maya, you want to come or stay here with Winston? Stay with Winston, Maya said immediately. That works. We'll just be a few minutes, okay? Maya waved them off, already engrossed in telling Winston about her favorite dinosaurs. Daniel followed Evelyn through the house, admiring the way she'd made each room feel intentional. Her home office with its wall of law books, the reading nook by the window, the kitchen that was clearly used for actual cooking rather than just reheating takeout. It's perfect, Daniel said when they reached the back porch overlooking a small yard. It's so completely you. Is that a good thing? The best thing. He pulled her close and she came easily, fitting against him in the way that was already becoming familiar. Thank you for inviting us here, for letting Maya into your space. I wanted this, Evelyn said against his chest. I wanted you to see where I live, how I exist when I'm not being corporate attorney Evelyn. This is who I am. Books everywhere, dog hair on everything, coffee cups I forget to bring to the sink. I like this version of you. Yeah? So much. He kissed the top of her head. Though I have to say, your house is making my apartment look pretty shabby in comparison. Evelyn pulled back to look at him. Your apartment is home. That's worth more than any view or architectural details. Spoken like someone who has both home and architectural details. She swatted his arm lightly. Stop, I'm serious. The home you've built for Maya, the life you've created for her, that's what matters. Not square footage or neighborhood prestige. Daniel knew she meant it, could hear the sincerity in her voice, but he also couldn't ignore the small voice in his head that whispered about the gap between their worlds. Her craftsman in Queen Anne versus his 2-bedroom rental in Greenwood, her legal career versus his freelance IT work, her settled success versus his still figuring it out existence. You're overthinking, Evelyn said gently. I can literally see you doing it. Sorry. Old insecurities. From Sarah's family? Daniel nodded. Sarah's parents had been kind, but her extended family had made their opinions about his prospects very clear over the years. Not good enough, not ambitious enough, not from the right background. It had taken Sarah's death for him to realize how much of his self-worth he'd built on trying to prove them wrong. I'm not them, Evelyn said firmly, and I'm not interested in your tax bracket or your career trajectory or whatever other metrics people use to evaluate worth. I care about who you are, how you show up, the way you love your daughter. That's it. That's what matters to me. I know. Intellectually, I know that. But sometimes the old scripts play anyway. Then we'll keep talking about it until the scripts change. She took his hand, threading their fingers together. Daniel, I want this to work, which means we're going to have to be honest when those scripts play, when the insecurities show up, when we're scared or uncertain or fighting old ghosts. Deal? Deal. They stood on the porch for another moment, holding each other in the gray afternoon light, before heading back inside to find Maya and Winston curled up together on the couch, the dog taking up 3/4 of the space while Maya perched on the remaining cushion reading him facts from her dinosaur encyclopedia. Did you know the Ankylosaurus had a tail club for protection? Maya was saying seriously. It could swing it really hard and hurt predators. Winston's tail thumped against the cushions as if in approval. Evelyn leaned against Daniel's side, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She's wonderful, Evelyn whispered. Truly. She's pretty great, Daniel agreed. Though I'm biased. They ordered pizza for dinner and ate it on the living room floor, while Maya peppered Evelyn with questions about being a lawyer, about Winston, about whether she'd ever seen a real fossil. Evelyn answered each question with the same serious attention she'd probably give a senior partner, never talking down to Maya, treating her curiosity as legitimate and important. Daniel watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest, a recognition of what this could be, what they could become together if they were brave enough to reach for it. Not a replacement for what he'd lost, but something new, something that honored his past while making space for a future. Dad, can we come visit Winston again? Maya asked around a mouthful of pepperoni. If Evelyn invites us, sure. Maya turned hopeful eyes on Evelyn. Can we? Please? I'll be really good, and I won't touch anything I'm not supposed to. You can come visit Winston any time, Evelyn said warmly. In fact, maybe next time we could take him to the dog park? If your dad says it's okay? Can we, Dad? Can we? Daniel caught Evelyn's eye, saw the hope and nervousness there, the question underneath the casual offer. This was her asking to be part of their lives beyond stolen moments and careful dates. This was her saying she wanted the messy, complicated reality of dating a single father. Yeah, sweetheart, we can do that. Maya's cheer was loud enough to make Winston bark, which set off a whole chain reaction of laughter and chaos that ended with pizza sauce on the couch and everyone dissolving into giggles. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep against Daniel's shoulder, exhausted from playing with Winston, Evelyn helped him carry his daughter to the car. They stood in the driveway under the porch light, vapor from their breath visible in the cold air. Thank you for today, Daniel said quietly, for making her feel welcome, for being so good with her. She makes it easy. Evelyn reached up to brush a strand of hair off Maya's sleeping face. She's special, Daniel, smart and kind and curious. You've done an incredible job with her. We've done an incredible job, Sarah and me. I can't take all the credit. Then you've both done an incredible job. She looked up at him. And I'd like to be part of that. Part of her life, in whatever way makes sense. If you're okay with that. Daniel shifted Maya's weight slightly, freeing one arm to pull Evelyn closer. I'm more than okay with that. But we need to be careful about how we do this. She's 6. She gets attached easily. And if this doesn't work out, I know. Evelyn's voice was serious. I'm not going anywhere, Daniel. I'm in this, really in this. But you're right. We need to be thoughtful about how we integrate everything. Thoughtful but not paralyzed. Exactly. He kissed her goodnight, careful not to wake Maya, then drove home through quiet streets with his daughter sleeping in the back seat and hope humming in his chest like a living thing. The next 2 weeks settled into a new rhythm. Evelyn came to one of Maya's soccer games and cheered from the sidelines with appropriate parental enthusiasm. Daniel brought Maya to Evelyn's house twice more, and each visit felt more natural, less fraught with the weight of first impressions. They had dinner at Daniel's apartment, and Evelyn didn't flinch at the mismatched furniture or the plastic dinosaurs scattered across every surface. They were building something, piece by careful piece. But Daniel could feel Evelyn pulling back slightly as December approached, taking longer to respond to texts, finding excuses to postpone plans, a subtle distance creeping in that he couldn't quite identify. He told himself he was imagining it, that she was just busy with work, that the holidays were stressful for everyone. but the worry gnawed at him anyway. It came to a head on a Tuesday evening when Daniel showed up at her office unannounced with coffee and found her staring at her computer screen with an expression he'd learned to recognize as internal crisis. "Hey," he said from the doorway. "Thought you could use a caffeine delivery." Evelyn looked up, and he saw something flicker across her face. Pleasure at seeing him, followed immediately by something that looked like guilt. "Daniel, I didn't know you were coming by." "I texted. You didn't respond." He set the coffee on her desk, studying her face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Evelyn," she sighed, closing her laptop with deliberate care. "I've been offered a case. A big one. Environmental litigation against a major corporation. It would be career-defining. The kind of case I've spent 20 years hoping for." "That's amazing," Daniel said, genuinely pleased. "So why do you look like someone just told you bad news?" "Because it's going to consume my life for the next 6 months. Maybe longer. 80-hour weeks, constant travel, zero personal time, and I just..." She looked at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I just got you. Got this. And I'm terrified that if I take this case, it's going to destroy what we're building before we even have a chance to build it properly." Daniel pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. "Okay, walk me through this. What are you actually afraid of?" "That I won't have time for you, for Maya. That you'll get tired of me canceling plans and being exhausted and choosing work over our relationship. That you'll realize you want someone who can actually be present instead of someone who's married to her career." "Those are valid fears," Daniel said carefully, "but they're based on the assumption that I'm going to abandon ship the moment things get difficult." "Do you really think that little of me?" Evelyn's head snapped up. "What? No, Daniel, that's not..." "Because I'm a single father running a business while raising a 6-year-old. I understand busy. I understand exhausted. I understand having to choose between competing priorities, and I'm still here. This is different." "How?" "Because..." She gestured helplessly. "Because you deserve better than someone who can only give you scraps of attention between depositions and court appearances. Because this case is going to be brutal, and I'm going to be impossible to deal with, and I don't want you to look at me 6 months from now and wonder why you're dating someone who's never available." Daniel reached across the desk to take her hand. "Are you trying to break up with me?" "No!" The word came out fierce and immediate. "No, I'm trying to be realistic about what I can offer you right now, and I'm scared it's not enough." "Evelyn, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "I don't need you to be available 24/7. I don't need constant attention or daily dates or proof that I'm your top priority. I need honesty. I need you to tell me when you're overwhelmed instead of pulling away. I need you to trust that I'm capable of understanding that sometimes work has to come first. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Then try. Take the case. Be brilliant. Change the world. And let me support you while you do it." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. It's just not easy." He squeezed her hand. "I'm not going anywhere, Evelyn, but I need you to stop preemptively protecting yourself from hurt by pushing me away. That's the only thing that's actually going to destroy this." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, and Daniel watched emotions play across her face. Fear, hope, resistance, acceptance. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll take the case, and I'll try to let you in instead of shutting you out. That's all I'm asking." She came around his desk to sit in his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck in a way that made Daniel's breath catch. "I don't deserve you." "That's demonstrably false. We deserve each other. Even when I'm being difficult and self-sabotaging? Especially then." He kissed her forehead. "We're both carrying damage, Evelyn. The question isn't whether we're going to struggle. It's whether we're going to struggle together or let fear keep us apart. And I'd rather struggle together." She buried her face in his neck, and Daniel felt her shoulders shake with silent tears. He held her through it, offering comfort without trying to fix, understanding that sometimes people just needed to be held while they felt their feelings. "I'm falling more in love with you every day," Evelyn whispered against his skin, "and it terrifies me." "I know," Daniel said softly. "Me too." They sat like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in her office chair, choosing vulnerability over safety, trust over fear. When Evelyn finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. "Come over tomorrow night?" she asked. "I want to show you something." "Maya has a play date, so I'm free." "What are you showing me?" "You'll see. Just come over around 7?" The next evening, Daniel arrived at Evelyn's house to find candles lit throughout and soft music playing. Evelyn met him at the door wearing jeans and one of his old MIT sweatshirts that she'd apparently stolen at some point, and Daniel's heart did something complicated in his chest. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi yourself. What's all this?" "This is me trying to be intentional instead of terrified." She took his hand and led him to the living room, where Winston was sprawled across his customary 3/4 of the couch. "Sit. I have something I need to tell you." Daniel sat, worry immediately spiking. "Okay." Evelyn settled beside him, taking both his hands in hers. "I've spent the last 2 years rebuilding my life after my marriage imploded. Learning to be alone. Learning to be okay with alone. I told myself I was happy, that I didn't need anyone, that independence was the ultimate goal." "Evelyn, let me finish." She took a breath. "Then you showed up, this guy who fixed my computer and looked at me like I wasn't intimidating or too much or too old, who treated me like a person instead of a position or a conquest, who made me laugh and made me think and made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need anymore." Daniel's throat was tight. "I'm not going anywhere." "I know. I'm starting to actually believe that, which is new for me. But here's the thing. I realized today that I've been so focused on what I can't give you, on my limitations and my baggage and my busy schedule, that I haven't told you what I can give you." "What can you give me?" "Honesty. Always. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I can give you someone who sees you, really sees you, and thinks you're extraordinary. I can give you patience when you're struggling with your own ghosts. I can give you a partner who will fight for this, for us, even when it's difficult. I can give you my whole messy, complicated heart, if you want it." Daniel felt tears prick his eyes. "I want it. I want all of it." "Even the messy parts?" "Especially the messy parts." He pulled her closer, and she came willingly. "Evelyn, you keep acting like you're not enough, like I'm settling or making do. But you're more than I ever thought I'd get to have again. You're brilliant and kind and strong and vulnerable, and you make me want to be better. So yes, I want your messy, complicated heart. I want all of it." She kissed him then, deep and searching, and Daniel tasted salt and understood she was crying. He pulled her into his lap, Winston huffing disapprovingly at being disturbed, and they held each other while the candles burned down and the music played. "I'm going to screw this up sometimes," Evelyn said against his shoulder. "I'm going to get overwhelmed with work and forget to communicate. I'm going to let old fears make me defensive. I'm going to be difficult." "And I'm going to be scared sometimes," Daniel countered. "I'm going to worry I'm not enough. I'm going to struggle with letting you in completely. I'm going to have moments where I feel guilty for moving on from Sarah. We're both going to be difficult. So what do? We talk about it. We give each other grace. We choose each other every day, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days." Evelyn pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "You really mean that? I've never meant anything more." She smiled, tremulous and beautiful, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest, a quiet certainty that whatever challenges they faced, they'd face them together. This was real. This was worth fighting for. This was what choosing love looked like, messy and imperfect and absolutely right. They spent the rest of the evening talking, planning how they'd navigate the coming months when Evelyn's case would demand most of her time. They established ground rules, mandatory check-ins even when things got crazy, honesty about capacity and needs, grace for missed dinners and postponed plans. They talked about how to include Maya while protecting her from the adult complexities, how to maintain their connection even when time was scarce. "This is going to be hard," Evelyn said as Daniel was leaving, late and reluctant to go. "Probably," he agreed, "but hard doesn't mean impossible. And you're worth hard. So are you." She kissed him goodnight, soft and lingering. Thank you for not running when I tried to push you away. Thank you for letting me stay. Daniel drove home through quiet streets, and when he checked on Maya before bed, he found himself standing in her doorway longer than usual, watching her sleep and feeling grateful for this complicated, beautiful life he was building. Sarah would want this for him, he thought, would want him to love again, to be happy, to give Maya the example of choosing joy even after loss. He pulled out his phone and sent Evelyn a message. Thank you for tonight, for your honesty, for choosing us. I'm all in. Her response came immediately. Me too, all in, together. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Daniel let himself fully believe it. The case consumed Evelyn exactly as she'd predicted. Within a week of officially taking it on, her life became a blur of depositions, document reviews, and strategy sessions that stretched deep into the night. Daniel watched her disappear into the work with a mixture of pride and concern, seeing the fierce intelligence that had first drawn him to her, now focused with laser precision on dismantling corporate malfeasance piece by careful piece. Their relationship shifted to accommodate the new reality. Dinner dates became late-night phone calls when Evelyn finally surfaced from her office. Weekend plans transformed into stolen hours between court appearances. Daniel brought her coffee and takeout when she was too buried to eat, sat quietly in her home office while she worked, offered his presence without demanding her attention. You don't have to do this, Evelyn said one evening in mid-December, looking up from a mountain of legal briefs to find Daniel reading on her couch with Winston's head in his lap. Sit here watching me work. You could be home with Maya, living your actual life. Maya's at a sleepover, Daniel said easily. And this is my actual life. Being near you even when you're busy. Unless you want me to leave? No. The word came out quick and certain. No, I like having you here. I just feel guilty that we're not actually spending time together. We are spending time together. It just looks different than traditional date night. That's okay. Evelyn set down her pen and rubbed her eyes, exhaustion written across every line of her face. How are you so patient with this? Because I understand that this matters to you, and because I know it's temporary, and honestly, because I kind of like seeing you in full lawyer mode. You're formidable. You keep using that word, because it keeps being true. Daniel set aside his book and crossed to where she sat, hands gentle on her shoulders. You're changing people's lives with this case, Evelyn. Communities that have been poisoned by corporate greed are going to get justice because you're fighting for them. That's not something to feel guilty about. She leaned back against him with a sigh. I still wish I had more to give you right now. You give me plenty. You give me honesty and presence when you can and trust that I'll understand when you can't. That's enough. Is it really? Daniel turned her chair to face him, crouching down so they were eye level. Listen to me. I fell in love with you knowing exactly who you are, a brilliant attorney who cares deeply about her work. I didn't fall in love with some imaginary version of you who has unlimited free time and no professional obligations. I fell in love with this version, the real one. Okay? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away impatiently. I love you too. I don't think I've said that out loud yet, but I do. I love you so much it scares me. I know. Me too. He kissed her softly. Now get back to work. Those corporate polluters aren't going to prosecute themselves. She laughed, watery but genuine, and pulled him in for another kiss before returning to her briefs. Daniel went back to the couch and his book, and they spent the next 3 hours in comfortable silence, together even in their separateness. The holidays arrived with their usual chaos. Daniel navigated Maya's Christmas program at school, gift shopping on a budget, and coordinating schedules with Sarah's parents for their annual Christmas Eve visit. Evelyn was deep in preparation for a crucial hearing scheduled for early January, working through Christmas Day itself, though she managed to join Daniel and Maya for a quiet dinner on the 26th. This is for you, Maya said solemnly, presenting Evelyn with a carefully wrapped package. I made it myself. Well, Dad helped a little with the hard parts. Evelyn opened it to find a framed drawing of herself, Daniel, Maya, and Winston, all holding hands under a rainbow. The figures were crude but recognizable, and the title scrawled across the top read, My Family, in Maya's careful printing. Daniel watched Evelyn's face crumple, saw her fight to hold back tears as she looked at his daughter's gift. Maya, this is beautiful. I'm going to put this in my office so I can see it every day. Really? Maya bounced with excitement. Even though I messed up your hair a little? Especially because you messed up my hair. It's perfect. Evelyn pulled Maya into a hug, and over his daughter's head, her eyes met Daniel's. The emotion there was raw and overwhelming. Gratitude, love, fear, hope, all tangled together. Later, after Maya was in bed and Evelyn was preparing to leave, Daniel walked her to the door and saw her clutching the framed drawing like it was made of something precious and fragile. She put me in her family picture, Evelyn whispered. Daniel, I know. What if I let her down? What if this case takes me away too much and she feels abandoned? What if I can't be what she needs? Daniel pulled her close, feeling her shake against him. You won't let her down. You already love her. I see it in how you talk to her, how you remember the things she tells you, how you show up even when you're exhausted. That's what she needs, not perfection, just presence and care. I'm terrified of being a parental figure. I don't know how to do that. Neither did I when Maya was born. We figure it out together, one day at a time. And you're not doing it alone. You have me. Evelyn buried her face in his shoulder. I never wanted children. I made peace with that years ago. But Maya, she's gotten under my skin. I care about her so much and I don't know what to do with all these feelings. You love her, Daniel said simply. That's what you do with the feelings. You love her and you show up and you let yourself be part of her life. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Everything feels complicated lately. Then let's make this simple. Daniel pulled back to look at her. I love you. Maya loves you. You love us. That's the foundation. Everything else we can figure out. Evelyn kissed him, desperate and clinging, and Daniel held her through it, understanding that she was processing more than just the holidays, more than just his daughter's acceptance. She was processing the terrifying reality of building a family after convincing herself she'd never have one. The new year arrived with Seattle's typical rainy fanfare, and Evelyn's case intensified as the hearing date approached. Daniel saw her even less during those first weeks of January, but their nightly phone calls became sacred, 15 or 20 minutes where she'd decompress, and he'd tell her about Maya's day, keeping her connected to the life waiting for her outside the pressure cooker of litigation. Tell me something good, Evelyn would say, exhausted and stretched thin. And Daniel would tell her about Maya's latest dinosaur obsession, or a funny client story, or how Winston had apparently learned to open the back gate and kept visiting the neighbor's yard. Small, ordinary things that grounded her when everything else was chaos. The hearing itself lasted 3 days, and Daniel knew better than to call or text during court hours. But each evening, Evelyn would show up at his apartment, sometimes at 9, once nearly midnight, and collapse onto his couch, letting him feed her and hold her while she processed the day's battles. We're winning, she told him on the second night, voice hoarse from hours of arguing motions. I can feel it. The judge is sympathetic, the evidence is solid. We're actually going to win this. Of course you are, Daniel said, working knots out of her shoulders. You're brilliant. I'm exhausted. You can be both. On the third night, after the hearing concluded and they were waiting for the judge's ruling, Evelyn showed up with pizza and champagne and an expression Daniel had never seen before, cautious hope mixed with bone-deep weariness. It's over, she said, setting the pizza on the counter. Whether we win or lose, the hearing's done. Now we just wait for the decision. How do you feel? Like I could sleep for a week, like I never want to see another legal brief, like I gave everything I had and I hope it was enough. She looked at him. Like I really want to spend time with you and Maya without my brain being somewhere else. Daniel crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. Then that's what we'll do. Maya has a soccer tournament this weekend. Want to come watch 6-year-olds chase a ball with varying degrees of success? That sounds perfect. And maybe after, we could all go to the bookstore cafe, the one where we ran into each other that first time? Evelyn pulled back to look at him. Full circle. Something like that. Saturday arrived cold and clear, and Evelyn showed up at Maya's soccer game wearing jeans and Daniel's MIT sweatshirt, her hair in a ponytail, completely devoid of her usual professional polish. She cheered for Maya's team with appropriate parental enthusiasm, commiserated with other parents about the weather, and looked more relaxed than Daniel had seen her in weeks. "This is nice," she said during halftime, hands wrapped around a thermos of coffee. "Being normal for a few hours. Not thinking about briefs or strategy or whether I prepared enough." "Well, you prepared plenty," Daniel assured her. "Now you get to just be a person for a while." "A person who's dating a guy with an adorable kid who plays soccer." "Exactly." After the game, which Maya's team won by a single chaotic goal, they piled into Daniel's CRV and headed to the bookstore cafe. Maya chattered the entire drive about her assist, about her teammate who fell down twice, about how Winston should learn to play soccer because he'd be great at it. The cafe was busy with weekend crowds, but they found a table near the children's section and settled in with books and hot chocolate. Daniel watched Evelyn help Maya sound out difficult words in her dinosaur encyclopedia, patient and engaged, and felt something expand in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid to hope for, this easy domesticity, this blended life, this sense of rightness that came from watching two people he loved connect with each other. It wasn't perfect. They were still navigating complicated waters, still learning how to be together while honoring their individual needs and obligations. But it was real, and it was theirs. "Dad, can Evelyn come to my school play next month?" Maya asked, looking up from her book. Daniel glanced at Evelyn, giving her an out if she needed it, but Evelyn's smile was immediate and genuine. "I would love to come to your school play. What's the play about?" "It's about recycling and saving the earth. I'm a tree." "That's perfect casting. You'll be the best tree." "I have to stand really still for like 5 whole minutes. It's very hard." "I bet, but I have complete faith in your tree abilities." Maya beamed and went back to her book, and Evelyn caught Daniel's eye across the table. The look they shared was weighted with unspoken understanding. This was commitment. This was showing up. This was choosing to be part of each other's lives in all the mundane and meaningful ways. The judge's ruling came down 2 weeks later. Evelyn called Daniel from her office, and he heard the tears in her voice before she even spoke. "We won," she said. "Complete victory. The company has to pay for cleanup, compensate affected residents, implement new environmental protocols, everything we asked for. We won." "Of course you did," Daniel said, grinning at his phone. "I never doubted you." "I doubted me about 1,000 times during this process. But you kept going anyway. That's what matters." "I want to celebrate," Evelyn said suddenly, "with you and Maya. Is that weird? Celebrating a work victory with my boyfriend and his daughter?" "That's not weird at all. That's what families do. They celebrate each other's victories." The word hung between them, families. They'd been dancing around it for weeks, this acknowledgement of what they were becoming, but hearing it said aloud made it real in a new way. "Families," Evelyn repeated softly. "Yeah, I guess we are, aren't we? If you want to be." "I do, I really do." They celebrated with ice cream and a movie, Maya oblivious to the significance of the evening, but delighted by the attention. Daniel watched Evelyn laugh at the animated film's jokes, watched her hold Maya's hand during the scary parts, watched her be fully present in a way she hadn't been able to manage during the case's intensity. "Thank you," Evelyn said later after Maya was asleep and they were alone on Daniel's couch. "For being patient while I was drowning in work, for understanding when I had to cancel plans, for showing up with coffee and food and just sitting with me, for not making me choose between my career and our relationship." "I would never make you choose that," Daniel said firmly. "Your work matters. It makes the world better. I knew that when I fell in love with you. Still, a lot of people wouldn't have been so understanding. Then a lot of people don't deserve you." He pulled her closer. "I meant what I said at Christmas. We figure this out together, one day at a time. The hard days and the easy ones." Evelyn was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his arm. "I want to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." "Do you see a future with me? Like a real future, not just dating and seeing how it goes, but actual long-term partnership?" Daniel's heart rate kicked up. "Is this a hypothetical question, or are you asking for a specific reason?" "Specific reason." She sat up to look at him. "My lease is up in June. I was planning to renew, but then I started thinking, We're always shuffling between your place and mine, coordinating schedules. Maya spending time at my house, but it's still my house, not ours. And I wondered if maybe she paused, gathering courage. If maybe it was time to stop maintaining separate lives and actually build one together. Daniel felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking if you'd want to look for a place together. Somewhere that's ours, not mine or yours. Big enough for Maya to have her own room, space for your work stuff and my books, maybe a yard for Winston. A place we choose together because we're building a life together. The magnitude of what she was proposing hit Daniel like a wave. This wasn't just moving in together, this was Evelyn asking him to merge their lives completely, to take the careful separation they'd been maintaining and dissolve it into genuine partnership. That's a big step, he said carefully. I know. And if it's too fast or too much, we can wait. I don't want to keep living in parallel anymore. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want Maya to have a real home with both of us in it. I want to build something permanent instead of always feeling temporary. Daniel thought about his apartment, the place he and Maya had lived since Sarah died. It had been fine, adequate, safe, theirs. But it had never really felt like home, more like a holding pattern, while he figured out how to live again. He thought about Evelyn's beautiful craftsman, about the life she'd built there, about how hard it had been for her to claim that space as her own after her divorce. He thought about Maya, who'd already put Evelyn in her family picture, who asked when Evelyn was coming over, who'd been learning what it meant to have another adult in her life who loved her. I want that too, he said quietly. I want all of it. But I need to talk to Maya first, make sure she understands what this means. Of course. Evelyn's smile was tremulous. This has to work for all three of us, not just you and me. 4, Daniel corrected. Winston's part of this equation too. Right, 4 of us. She laughed, a little watery. We're really doing this. Well, we're really doing this. The conversation with Maya happened the next evening, and Daniel approached it with the same careful attention he brought to all the major discussions in his daughter's life. Maya, I need to talk to you about something important, he said after dinner, settling beside her on the couch. Maya set down her dinosaur book, giving him her full attention with that unnerving 6-year-old directness. Is someone sick? Are you sick? No, nothing like that. Everyone's healthy. Daniel took a breath. You know how Evelyn and I have been dating and how you spend time at her house sometimes? Yeah, I like her house. Winston's there. Right, well, Evelyn and I have been talking and we think maybe it would be nice if we all lived together. In a new house that would belong to all of us, you, me, Evelyn, and Winston. Maya's eyes went wide. Like a real family? Yeah, sweetheart, like a real family. Daniel watched her face carefully, trying to gauge her reaction. But this is a big change, and I need to know how you feel about it. If you're not ready, or if it makes you uncomfortable, we can wait. Would I still have my own room? Absolutely. We'd make sure you had your own space for all your dinosaurs and books. And Winston would live with us? Winston would live with us. Maya considered this with the seriousness she brought to all major decisions. Would Evelyn be like my mom? Daniel felt his throat tighten. Evelyn would be like Evelyn. She's not trying to replace your mom. Nobody could ever do that. But she loves you very much and wants to be part of your life. What that looks like exactly, we'd all figure out together. Can I still talk about Mommy and keep her pictures? Always. Mommy will always be important to us, and we'll always remember her. That doesn't change just because we're adding Evelyn to our family. Maya was quiet for a long moment, and Daniel forced himself to wait, to let her process without rushing. I think it would be good, Maya said finally. I like Evelyn. She's nice to me and she knows about dinosaurs and she makes you happy. And Winston is really soft. Daniel laughed despite the tears threatening. Those are all excellent reasons. Can we get a house with a yard so Winston can play outside and maybe I could have a swing set? We can definitely look for a house with a yard. Then okay, let's be a real family. She paused. But I still want to visit Grandma Patricia and Grandpa sometimes. Of course, they'll always be your grandparents, and we'll still see them all the time. Maya nodded, satisfied, and went back to her book as if they'd just discussed what to have for breakfast, rather than a fundamental restructuring of their lives. Daniel sat there for a moment, marveling at her resilience, at how children could hold complexity with such apparent ease. He texted Evelyn, "We're in. Maya's on board. She has requests about yard space and continued Winston access, but otherwise enthusiastic." Evelyn's response came immediately. "I love her so much. And you? When do we start looking?" The house hunting process took 2 months and revealed things about each of them they hadn't known. Daniel discovered that Evelyn had surprisingly specific opinions about kitchen layouts and natural light. Evelyn learned that Daniel was incredibly practical about square footage and school districts. Maya insisted on personally inspecting every yard for swing set potential and Winston compatibility. They found it in late March, a house in Fremont that split the difference between Daniel's budget-conscious practicality and Evelyn's aesthetic preferences. 3 bedrooms, an office that could accommodate both their work needs, a kitchen big enough for actual cooking, and a yard that made Maya squeal with delight. It needed work, some updating and cosmetic repairs, but it had good bones and felt immediately like home. "This is it," Evelyn said, standing in the empty living room with afternoon light streaming through the windows. "This is our house." Daniel walked over to where she stood, Maya already running through the space claiming her room, and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You sure? It's not as nice as your place in Queen Anne. It's better than my place in Queen Anne because it's ours. All of ours." She turned in his arms. "Are you sure? This is a huge commitment. Buying a house together, blending our lives completely. No more escape hatches or separate spaces." "I've never been more sure of anything," Daniel said honestly, "except maybe falling in love with you in the first place." They made an offer that evening, and 3 weeks later, after inspections and negotiations and more paperwork than Daniel thought possible, the house was theirs. Moving day was controlled chaos. Daniel's meager possessions took a single truckload. Evelyn's beautifully curated belongings required professional movers and careful coordination. Maya helped by organizing her dinosaurs in her new room with intense focus. Winston supervised everything from various comfortable positions throughout the house. Sarah's parents came by with lunch and helped unpack boxes, and Daniel watched Patricia survey the house with careful eyes, understanding she was evaluating whether this was a good place for her granddaughter, whether Evelyn was truly someone who could be trusted with Maya's well-being. "It's a good house," Patricia said finally, finding Daniel in the kitchen. "And she's good with Maya. I see how she looks at her." "She loves her," Daniel said quietly. "I know, and Patricia paused, choosing words carefully. "I'm glad you found this, Daniel. Sarah would be glad too. She'd want you to be happy, to give Maya a full life. I think you're doing that." "Thank you," Daniel managed around the lump in his throat. "That means everything." That night, after the movers left and Sarah's parents departed and Maya was finally asleep in her new room, Daniel and Evelyn collapsed onto the couch in their new living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the comfortable chaos of beginning. "We did it," Evelyn said, her head on Daniel's shoulder. "We actually built this." "We did." "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Daniel admitted. "You?" "Absolutely. But the good kind of terrified." "Is there a good kind?" "The kind where you're scared because you care so much, because this matters more than anything, because you're choosing something real instead of safe. That kind." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "Then yeah, the good kind of terrified." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the house settle around them, to Winston snoring from his bed, to Maya's soft breathing from down the hall. This was it, the life they'd chosen, the family they'd built from damage and hope and courage. "I love you," Evelyn said quietly. "I love you and Maya and this messy, complicated, beautiful thing we're creating together. I love it so much I can barely breathe sometimes." "I know exactly what you mean." Daniel pulled her closer. "I love you too. Not despite the complications or the fear or the learning curve, because of all of it. Because you showed up and stayed and let me love you even when it was scary. We're really doing this, building a life together. We really are." And in that moment, sitting in their new house with their daughter asleep down the hall and their whole future stretching ahead, Daniel felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in 3 years. Complete, unguarded hope. Not the careful, tentative hope of early recovery, but the bold, unreserved hope of someone who'd survived loss and chosen to love anyway. This was what moving forward looked like. Not forgetting the past or replacing what was lost, but making space for something new while honoring what came before. Sarah would always be part of their story, woven into Maya's existence and Daniel's memory. But Evelyn was part of their story now too, choosing them daily, building this imperfect, wonderful family one ordinary moment at a time. The next morning, Daniel woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and Evelyn warm beside him. Maya's voice drifting from the kitchen, where she was apparently already up and talking to Winston about her plans for the day. He lay there for a moment, taking inventory of this new life, before Evelyn stirred against him. "Morning," she mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "Morning. Maya's already up." "I heard. Something about teaching Winston to fetch dinosaurs." Evelyn opened her eyes, and Daniel was struck again by how beautiful she was in these unguarded moments. This is our life now. Waking up together. Maya down the hall. Winston shedding on everything. Real life. Every day. Having second thoughts? Not even a little. She kissed him softly. "Best decision I ever made, choosing this. Choosing you." They got up and joined Maya in the kitchen, and Daniel made pancakes while Evelyn attempted to organize the chaos of still-packed boxes, and Maya regaled them with elaborate plans for her new room. It was ordinary and mundane and absolutely perfect. This was what they'd built. Not some fairy tale ending, but something better, something real and messy and infinitely precious. Two people who'd been broken by loss and betrayal, who'd learned to trust again, who'd chosen each other and kept choosing each other through fear and doubt and all the ordinary challenges of building a life together. And as Daniel watched Evelyn laugh at something Maya said, as he felt the warmth of their new house around them, he understood that this was enough, more than enough. This was everything. The quiet collision that had become a careful partnership, that had become a committed love, that had become this family. Imperfect and beautiful and entirely theirs. They'd stopped being afraid and chosen to begin. And that choice, renewed daily in 1,000 small ways, was the most courageous thing either of them had ever done.